Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Vani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Friday, April 11th. Things get worse before they get better. Investors took a pause in their enthusiasm yesterday after the tariff pause-induced rally from Wednesday. All three major indices slid back into the red. During regular trading, the Dow dropped more than 1,000 points, or 2.5%. The S&P 500 gave up 188 points, or nearly 3.5%. The Nasdaq ended down 737 points, or 4.3%. Bill, let's get into Friday's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes, good morning, Emily. I'm watching S&Ps. We're up 0.4%. That's positive. We were lower. I mean, the trade war between the U.S. and China is continuing to escalate. China lifted its tariffs on U.S. goods to 125%. I mean, this essentially chokes off any opportunity that the U.S. has to do business in China. I mean, 125%, and we sell so little goods into China, it's going to be really difficult to kind of move forward doing business in China. But they did indicate that this is going to be their last tariff action, because after this, it's comical. It makes no sense. They're at such a high level right now that there is no rate that they can go at that will hurt the U.S. imports any more than it already is. So don't expect China to increase the tariffs, and that's kind of good news, I guess. But President Trump did express yesterday a willingness to hold trade talks with China. That's nice. And let's face it, on Monday, the U.S. and the EU are scheduled to hold trade talks. That's positive. On the economic calendar today, hey, the PPI, the final demand, that's due out for March. That's due out before the opening bell. But I'm going to be really paying attention to the consumer confidence figure that's coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's likely going to continue negative. I mean, the economic data so far, it's not horrible. I mean, if it wasn't for the trade tariffs, I mean, the market would be much higher than it is right now. We would have been seeing, much more positive action. But these trade tariffs and this trade war is really diluting value out of the markets. What else do I see? Hey, I got positive action this morning at J.P. Morgan, BlackRock, BK, Bank of New York, and Wells Fargo. Due to earnings reports. That's all good news. And then, kind of taking a quick look at the European markets, the DAX is down 349 points. That's 1.70%. The good news is the EU postponed their planned retaliatory tariffs on the U.S., but the China trade war is really, the main factor here. It was down, it did come back. It was down 0.77, but now it's down 1.71%. The FTSE, on the other hand, is showing a gain. It's up about 20 points or 0.26%. The key factor was it's being helped by the stronger than expected GDP reading for February that came out this morning. In France, the market's down 51 points or 0.72%. French president said that the U.S. tariff suspension offers a fragile pause in tension, but a vital opportunity for negotiation. Positive speak. That's good to see. In Asia, we saw the Nikkei. The Nikkei fell. It dropped 1,000 points, 1,023 points, or 2.96%. Remember, it was up 9% the day before. But there are growing concerns of the economic fallout, on the trade war. Hong Kong continues to run. I mean, it was up 1.13% or 232 points. I mean, you saw some strong gains in autos and tech stocks in Hong Kong. That was good to see. In China rose 0.45%. There's optimism around the state-backed, equity purchases, the buybacks that the state is doing to help offset the intensified action that's being caused with the U.S.-China trade war. Then we're turning our attention to oil, and oil is showing gains. It's up about 0.2%. WTI is at $60.20 a barrel, whereas Brent's at $63.46 a barrel. I mean, they dropped over 3% yesterday. Following 3% this week, following last week's 10% drop. I mean, this is the lowest since April of 2021. So yeah, they're flat to higher, but we're still seeing gains. So that is a positive for oil. And that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update, Emily.
Bill, to prepare for the trading day ahead, it's important to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of all of these types of news, information, and data. As we're still navigating the possible trade wars and these tariff talks, there's another of other, important pieces of information that are, tempering markets, including that earnings action that you mentioned. And there's a number of economic events along with some Fed speak after a day that we had a host of Fed speak. And still, there's other market moving headlines, corporate headlines, and other stocks to be watching. We're going to get through all of it on today's show so that we don't miss any of the details on the day. We will turn first to earnings action. Earnings season officially kicking off here with some big banks, as you mentioned. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of earnings?
I'm going to start off with ticker FAST, Frank Apple Sam Tom. That's Fastenal. This is a key one. They met expectations and they did do it on higher revenue, but by only meeting expectations, it's a little worrisome. And the stock is down 0.5% this morning. But then you get somebody like JP Morgan, ticker JPM, John Paul Mary. They beat by 45 cents on higher revenue. You look at JP Morgan this morning, stock's up 1.25%. Morgan Stanley, ticker MS, Michael Sam, they beat by 41 cents, and they did that on higher revenue. That stock's up 0.4%. So, that's positive as well. So, we did have some interesting earnings that did come out. BlackRock also delivered a strong beat, BLK. This morning. But upcoming on Monday morning, you got MTB Bank, M&T Bank, Michael Tom Boyd. Their EPS is expectations is $3.41, and the expected move is 7.44%. And Goldman Sachs, ticker GS, Gray Sam, their EPS is $12.71. And the expected move here is 7.92% when they release on Monday morning, Emily.
The other thing that you're following on this Friday are economic reports. You did mention 2 in your opening, and there's some Fed speak to keep track of. So, Bill, give us a rundown of everything we should be watching when it comes to the day's economic events.
8:30 a.m. we get the PPI final demand. 10 a.m. you get the University of Michigan consumer sentiment figures coming out. 1 p.m. you get the Baker Hughes rig count being released. 9 a.m. we're going to hear from Boston Fed Bank President Susan Collins. 10 a.m. we're going to hear from St. Louis Fed Bank President Alberto Muslam. At 11 a.m. we're going to hear from New York Fed Bank President John Williams. I mean, listen, the escalating trade tensions remain a growing concern. The dollar, index fell over 1% this morning to like its lowest level in 3 years, I think I saw. I mean, that's is concerning. Now, that's good for earnings. The lower dollar will be positive for the earnings, but I mean, you hear what the Fed officials are saying. Like, yesterday we heard from former Fed chair and former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She came out highly critical yesterday over Trump's economic plan and said that the shifting tariff policies have increased the odds of a recession. Austin Goolsbee, Chicago Fed Bank president, he came out yesterday and he basically said that he characterized the tariffs as a stagflationary shock that simultaneously pressures prices upward while threatening job losses and then economic slowdown. Yeah, that's what happens when you get into a tariff war, and we're definitely in one now. I think that the PPI will be okay this morning. The forecast is for it to come in at plus 0.2%. After a flat reading in February. Consumer confidence, that's been so weak as of late. We'll have to really see how that number comes out. But I'm concerned about that. That could lead to some weakness in the markets when the consumer confidence number is released this morning at 10 a.m. And that's what I have for you in terms of economic update, Emily.
A number of key indicators there you'll be keeping track of using your NewsWare. You're also using your NewsWare to keep track of all of those earnings reports as they're hitting the tape, able to be ahead of any market moves rather than trailing behind. You're also looking at other types of news, data, and information, looking at things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You also group your stocks together in your NewsWare, like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I am doing a quick data check here. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. The fact of the matter is, I've got 5 lower, 24 higher, and 1 unchanged. So that's kind of positive. And FANG stocks, three lower, three higher, not really significant, but I'm seeing positive action in the airlines. I'm seeing positive action in the banks. I'm seeing positive action in the drug stocks. I'm seeing positive action for the most part in the semiconductor. So, it isn't, a bad day. It looks like we're starting off in the right direction. We'll have to wait and see, but looking for some of the news behind the tape, like Amazon, they released a report yesterday. In the report, the Amazon CEO, Jeff came out and he said that AI is going to reinvent their operations. It could be positive. I mean, you look at Amazon, and it is trading a little higher this morning. That's good. Google did some layoffs. They announced some layoffs, but it's in their phone division. The Pixel phone, the Android phone. Stocks trading higher by 0.7%. And Meta and Tesla, TSLA, stocks down slightly, about 40 cents this morning. But they're suspending taking new orders for two models in China. They put it on their website as well. So, Tesla, a little bit of concern with their China operations. I'm talking Dow Jones 30 stocks. American Express, ticker AXP, it's up 1.92% this morning. I mean, it's getting some positive commentary from the major brokers this morning. I like to see that. 3M higher by 0.3%, but yesterday we saw some heavy put volumes. The action was really in the June 145 puts. So they were very active yesterday. In terms of merger news, Harley Davidson Hog, ticker HOG, they're considering options. They're considering selling its financing arm. In terms of guidance news, JP Morgan sees full year 2025 net interest income, 94.5 billion versus their prior view of 94 billion. Oh, okay, slight uptick. In terms of shareholders meetings, Bank of Montreal, ticker BMO, Boy Michael Oscar, they're having their annual shareholders meeting today. In terms of catalyst calls, RMD, Richard Michael David. This is ResMed. They were placed in a 90-day negative catalyst watch by Citibank this morning, ticker RMD, Richard Michael David. And that's what I have for in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day, but one more pick for this week, continuing to navigate the unpredictability in each trading day. So what is your pick of the day today?
NVO, Nancy Victor Oscar, Novo Nordisk. I mean, listen, on Monday, there's a meeting with the EU and the U.S. on trade. That's a positive development. That could help. Now, there's also news out there about the Ozempic, their weight loss drug. There are other companies out there, but that hasn't been hurting the sales of their weight loss drug as of yet. So, I'm not too worried about that. All right, when you look at yesterday's call volume, 17,479 versus put volume of 22,479, definitely negative, definitely on the put side. But I think that could turn today. And, brokers are neutral on the stock, but, the stock's trading higher. It is running already at 64.5. But, if it falls down to that 62.50, I'm going to pick some up. I think it's a little bit, the gains are a little bit stretched this morning. And I'm looking to, see a little bit of weakness this morning. And I think we will see it. It could be around that 10 o'clock hour. And from there, I do think we're going to see some positive action because, the trade talks, that they're happening Monday. So you got to be positive going into Monday on Novo Nordisk. But I'm waiting for that 62.50 level to get in. But I do think we could see some nice strong gains in Novo Nordisk, ticker NVO today, Emily.
Bill, trading a bit of the news cycle with that data, looking for a win there. We will follow that one with you today. And coming up, before we sign off for the weekend, we will do a check-in on yesterday's pick of the day to see how that one went. But before we get there, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, let's see what we have here. JP Morgan warns economy is facing considerable turbulence. This is Jamie Dimon. He's always negative, when on these earnings conference calls. So I'm not surprised to see that. I was actually expecting it. JP Morgan says investment banking clients are becoming more cautious. That's concerning. Peter Navarro says Trump is the chief negotiator. Morgan Stanley says their profits surged in the first quarter, powered by trading revenue. Trump is posed to pick fights with big banks over lending for small businesses. Morgan Stanley raises its credit loss provision due to weakening macro forecasts. The Chinese stocks, the Chinese retail stocks are a concern because there is talk about them being delisted from the U.S. exchanges. They are trading higher, though, this morning. FTC is seeking more information on the Valvoline purchase of Breeze Auto Care. It's a second request, I believe. Wells Fargo, they said that their profit rose 6%. China calls Trump's tariff standoff a joke. Pentagon is terminating $4 billion worth of IT contracts, according to a report out there this morning. Stellantis reports Q1 shipments down 9%. Gas ticker GES. They're launching a new line of premium watches. Now these are like Timex watches, but but they're doing it for the fashion brand Rag and Bone, which is apparently a popular fashion brand for the youth. Lilly, ticker LLY. They estimated Q1 2025 acquired in process R&D charge of about 1.57 billion. Gilead, ticker GILD. They expect their IPR&D expenses to cut against their earnings by about 16 cents a share, or 254.4 million. GlaxoSmithKline Beckham, ticker GSK, CEO says the company can navigate through the tariff wars. U.S. chip makers, which outsource manufacturing, will be exempt from China's retaliatory tariffs. Chevron, CVX, the Venezuelan state oil company, has canceled several authorizations it had granted to the U.S.-based producer to load and export Venezuelan crude in April. That's all I'm seeing this morning.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Friday, sign off for the weekend, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was the Progressive Corporation. I did see a couple of price target raises on the stock this morning, sort of looking at Progressive in the wider lens here. On Thursday, the Consumer Price Index report did sort of show that auto insurance prices are moderating. They historically have been one of the biggest contributors to increases in the CPI over the last couple years. So prices are moderating, but still pretty high. That's something to keep in mind as we're watching earnings from Progressive and other insurance companies. But speaking of price action, Bill, you were looking for some price action in this one, hoping for a specific entry point to get a gain. How did your call work out?
It worked out really well, actually. I mean, the stock opened up at $270.71. Now it fell down to $266. Now my sweet spot, as I said, was $266.75. By falling down to $266, that was a screaming buy, and then it turned. Then it ran up and it hit a high at $275.83, and it closed at $273.18. You look at the stock this morning, and it's trading 272.59 to 285. The last trade was $275.18. So yeah, that was a big winner. Whether you got it at the opening price, you made 2%. If you got it at my entry price, you made more. But PGR, big winner yesterday. Big winner, Emily.
Easy, solid win there, Bill. And given the conditions, again, it feels like even more of a win because things did turn into the red yesterday, but not Progressive. And we will check in with you on Monday about today's Novo Nordisk pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here Monday at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Vani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.